Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out RVdaydream. This is going to be a little bit different today. I'm starting off inside, but this video is going to be not only long, you guys know that I do some long videos, but also it's going to be an installation video covering an installation, actually two installations, of a product that I received, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video. I wanted to explain the video format basically here. I've had comments in the past on my other channel that I do installations on that, oh, you could have just got to the point. Why are you telling me all these little details? Why are you showing me all this stuff? What I found is that you can't make a short video longer to get more detail out of it. However, you can take a long video like I do with a lot of detail and you can fast forward to the part that you want to see and you can make that video shorter. So I opt to do the latter. I try to make it to where if you're following along and some of the steps I'm telling you, you need to skip, just go down into the description past all the links, because I'm going to have links to all these products that I'm talking about, and in the description there's going to be timestamps, and all you have to do is just see the brief description of where you're going to fast forward to, and then you just click that link and it'll send you there. In this video I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. The cameras, the monitors, the systems overall. I'm going to show the unboxing of the systems to show you what's in there. And then I'm going to talk about all the things that I run into whenever I'm installing it and the things that go through my head whenever I'm considering where to place the stuff and why I'm placing it. And things that may not be considered by everyone when doing installations. Now, I've done a lot of repairs and a lot of installations over my life, and I've always got reasons for the most part what I'm doing, and even though I'm no engineer, I usually can figure out different ways to do things to make sure that they last longer and that they don't come apart prematurely, because no matter how good a product is, something may be a little bit susceptible if it's not mounted correctly. So you got to pay attention, and that's what this video is about, me paying attention to all the little details as I'm installing it. So sit back. If you want to watch the whole video, great. First part of it's going to be a wireless system that I'm installing on my truck and RV, and then I'm going to go into a wired system. I'm going to explain the differences between the two and why it might be best to go wired, and I'm going to be installing that on my son's van. So enjoy.
What have you been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, but something I've done in the past, and that's talk about a product that I was sent to take a look at. Now, as a lot of you guys know, that I have an Amazon affiliates account, and a lot of the product that we purchase is also a lot of product that is sold on Amazon. And what we asked is that if you like something that we talk about, or if you're thinking about something that we're talking about, to click the link and go to that product, and at that point purchase it or just browse around. It doesn't make a difference, just as long as you use the link that we provide down below to get you to Amazon. That way you can help support our channel and the videos like this that are showing product that maybe somebody, including yourself, could be interested in the future. Now, in this case, I was contacted by the manufacturer of this product, a representative from their company, and asked if I'd like to do a review. So, for full disclosure, this product that I'm talking about today, and actually there's two products, is something that was sent to me for review. I wasn't paid to do the review. I was just given their product to take a look at. I told them if I felt it was a fair product, I would do a video on it. And in this case, since you're watching the video, that must mean that it must be pretty good, or I wouldn't have even bothered you with it. So let's go ahead and talk about the two products. Well, as the title suggests, this is for a backup camera. Inside my vehicle here, you can kind of see the view that I have going on behind me. Whenever you're driving a truck or an RV, you're going to find that you're going to learn to use your side mirrors a lot. However, there's going to be times that those side mirrors don't show you the entire picture. It also helps to know when traffic approaches you from the rear, how fast they're coming. Maybe they're trying to get around you. And if you can't see out the back of your vehicle, which is pretty much every RV and anybody traveling or towing an RV, you can't see what's going on behind you. That's where rear view cameras come into play. There's a couple of different reasons to have rear view cameras. One of them is for backing reasons, and that is when you're backing up to your RV so you can see the hitch and get yourself lined up. That way you don't have somebody outside yelling at you, telling you, yeah, a little bit more, a little to your left, a little to your right. After a while, you start to get to the point where you can do it yourself, really without any help, maybe having to get out a couple times and checking, but it's still a hassle. And the other reason is to give you a better view of maybe a parking situation. Whenever you're trying to back a bigger vehicle, even though my truck's not very big, it is bigger than a car. And there's some people that aren't real familiar with driving a bigger vehicle. I know my daughter borrowed my truck when she moved into her new home, and the only thing she complained about was that she had a hard time figuring out how far she could go back whenever she was backing up. And she was actually looking for the rear view camera that I had in my old F-150. She thought I had installed it in this truck. Well, I'd always been happy with my old rear view camera that I had with my old truck, but I wanted something that would allow me to connect with my RV to see what's behind my RV when we're traveling. It's really nice to have, especially if you have some sort of cargo back there or cargo carrier. Even without it, just traffic alone. So the one thing I was looking for is basically a 2-camera system that allow me to back the truck up and connect to the RV, but more importantly, one that lets me see behind the RV. Whenever you hear wire and wireless, there is no camera system that is truly 100% wireless unless it's self-battery powered. So even the wireless cameras are going to have some power wires going to it. And of course the monitor, it's going to have wires going to it also. So you have the 2 components. You have the monitor, which sits inside the vehicle that is just like a computer monitor. You can see what's going on. And then you have the camera. Now the way the cameras will transmit their images to that monitor could be through a cable, or it could be done wireless. Wireless cameras, no matter how much they cost, aren't 100% fault proof. That's why wired cameras are still on the market. I remember the first wireless I had, it seemed like no matter what I turned on in my vehicle, there was always static on the screen and I would lose the picture. And this is going quite a few years back. But now they're getting better and better, and they're using some technology that's really helping out with cutting out interference from things when you're driving along. Let me go ahead and show you what we got and why we're going to go with the system that we're going with and how we're going to wire it. As you can see here, this is a wireless system, and I'm going to pronounce this Halo View. I like the idea that it's a halo and it goes above. However, I hear a lot of people pronouncing it Halo View. It's an MC7101, and not only does this come with a single camera, but you can buy up to 3 more cameras, and you can display, as shown here, all 4 cameras on this screen at the same time. Or it gets better than that, which we'll get into the details, where you can actually have this thing choose automatically which camera to come on. This does have night vision, and it has video recording. This thing can be used as a security device if you really wanted to. Again, another great feature we'll get into in a little bit later. Now, to the right of that is, again, the same brand, and this is a wired system. Now, whenever I talked with the gentleman over email, basically, and he was asking me which system that I would like to try out, he mentioned that he had a wired system, and I said, I might want to go with that. If the wireless has enough communication issues, which I don't suspect it does, the wired system is definitely going to be better. What you do is whenever you order this, in my case, he asked me how long of cable I needed, and he gave me a few choices, and I got cable that's plenty long enough for this vehicle and the one that we're going to install this in. Yep, that's right, we're going to be installing this in another vehicle. Now, you heard me say that it'd be nice to have 2 cameras, one that I could see when I'm backing my truck up, and another one that I could see my RV whenever we're actually traveling down the road. I want to first install the furthest away. I want to see how good this communication is. Now, this communication is wireless, and this thing is going to be all the way on the back of my RV, while this is all the way up in the front in my truck. And these antennas are going to be the only way they can communicate with each other. So it's going to be important that you place the antennas correctly, and you get this as high as possible, because even though the RV is very short, you got to figure it's all metal, and all it's trying to do is reflect a signal, not transmit a signal from the front to the rear. Okay, so a few things about the company.
you see made in China. I haven't had an issue with made in China products for quite some time. All this means to me is that if it's put together correctly and the quality control has been taken care of by the manufacturer that is having them put this together for them, then you may be getting a really good product, inexpensive. Now, on the marketplace right now, as far as a system that is set up in the same general manner, you're going to be talking about $400, maybe $500. I've seen them go all the way up to $800 for a super high quality system, and even then a lot of that's being produced in China. Now this company, HaloView, they're actually out of Hong Kong. All their research and development and product build is basically done in China. Again, as long as the quality control is being taken care of, I don't have a problem with where the source is that's actually supplying these. Let's go ahead and open up this system first. We're going to install this one, take a look at it, and see what it's going to take to get this running, and some of the points that you need to be aware of whenever you're considering this system in general, and also how to install it, things that you got to pay attention to. All right, since it's a nice day out, we're going to go ahead and stay outside and open this up, take a look at what's in here. And I don't want to do so much of an unboxing. I see quite a few of those videos. I'm not a big fan, all except for the fact that this will let you know if any of this stuff that I am bringing out of my box isn't included with yours, that maybe they forgot to pack it. Got the user manual. Let's go over the camera specifications. The one thing that I think that you should be aware of is quality. That's going to be the big deciding factor between this and a lot of the other manufacturers. Now, this is the camera specs. This is how good the camera is. Here's your sensor, which is a pretty decent sensor. We're going to work off the NTSC because that's the US specifications for the most part. You can see this is going to be at 60 Hertz, 30 frames per second. Now, I shoot all my videos like you're watching right now in 60 frames per second. It definitely helps with action shots. Now, when you're traveling, you can guess that there is a lot of action. However, we're not looking for anything crazy. The problem that people run into is they get caught up in quality numbers and they really go overboard for what they need. Now, everybody would love to have 4K high definition cameras to be able to see all around their vehicle. The problem with that is the cameras are expensive. A 4K camera that can transmit wirelessly, you're going to be into $500 just for the camera. You know, what are you going to do whenever you need 4 of them, or you want to install 4 of them? You're going to have $2,000 just in cameras. So I'm not a big fan of that, but I am also not a big fan of not being able to see whatever I'm trying to see in the camera view on the monitor. In this case, this camera is 756 by 504 pixels. Basically, I just want you to refer to this last number, and the monitor itself will broadcast an image that is basically 480p in quality. And what that means is not as good as high definition. They consider that standard definition. Now, before you get turned off by that, before you get crazy and say, oh man, standard definition, I want high definition. You guys that are older, DVDs were something unbelievable whenever they came out. Not Blu-ray, but DVD. Whenever you had VCRs and you were watching old videos on that VHS tape and you were thinking, man, you know, the picture's pretty good on this, I'm enjoying this movie, and then DVD came out and your eyes were opened. Well, high definition has done that for us too. High definition has definitely opened our eyes to what could be possible. The thing is, I remember DVD always being pretty darn good. I've never had an issue with DVD quality. And that's, again, 480p. So the camera is going to capture in a little bit higher than DVD quality, and it's going to display to the monitor, and the monitor is going to show you in DVD quality what that's like. A lot of these cellular phone companies are letting you watch as much movies as you want on your phone or your tablet with their plans without being charged for any data, because they're broadcasting or allowing the picture to come across in 480, which is DVD quality. So if you can live with that, I'm sure you can live with this. This is going to be an MP4 which is really nice for sharing the video. And also, in this case, again, remember, it's also a DVR. It's a digital video recorder. So again, if you have those, you can see, share, capture, save a lot more if you use a format that's familiar. It's a 120 degree viewing angle. Of course, you want a pretty decent wide angle, but you don't want it so wide that you have rounding off the corners of the picture, because that becomes a little bit distorted and harder to understand when you're driving down the road. This IP69K, that is a waterproof rating. Just to let you know, as far as waterproof ratings go, that's the highest that they have. Next, we're getting into the antennas, because yes, it's broadcasting a signal. It needs an antenna to do so. You can see there's the camera, and here's the monitor. Now, as you might guess, you have some sort of a pass-through here, grommet, in case you're trying to make a clean installation on the monitor and you don't want the cable coming up through your dash and making a hole in your dash that looks god-awful. This will allow you to drill a nice hole and be able to place it through, and it would look pretty decent. The monitor looks pretty good. That's a pretty good size. It's about the size of my GPS. And yeah, there's the back. There is a place, obviously, for a SD card, a micro SD card. Of course, you can get those in all kinds of sizes. 128 gigabytes is what I show here as far as it being able to capture. And what happens is it's a loop. Once it captures so much, it just loops and starts recording over, unless you've saved it and you don't want it to record over. There's a speaker in the back. We'll get to that in a minute here. Again, another pretty decent quality grommet, and the camera and mounting bracket. Now, if you notice here, you have Allen-headed screws on all four sides, and also there's a sun shield. The nice thing about that is, whenever you mount the camera and you get it to the angle that you want, you do want it protected as much as possible, not so much from weather, but from glare. So you can fool around with this shield and tilt it at an angle that'll allow the glare not to attack the lens so heavily, because that really does make a difference. Now, you also have to worry about if it's too low. It has IR sensors because it does have night vision. You don't want to block those IR sensors or get some sort of a weird feedback there. So again, there's a lot of testing as far as how you want to place this before you actually mount it. And it actually says that in the instructions. You definitely want to screw around with this as far as where you want to put it at and how good the signal is going to the monitor before you drill a hole in your RV. Inside here we have what is a power lead that goes to the camera that I just showed you. Just like you think, this is negative and this is positive. Real easy, because the RV has 12 volt traveling through the entire system. And then you have this for the monitor. Now you can see this has 3M tape, and this here is flexible so that you can mount it on your dashboard if you'd like. You can also mount this up on your windshield if you would like, and have it hang down from above. You can do it on your roof. There's a lot of different ways that you can mount this, and this is pretty decent quality. As far as the mounting itself, you can see there's a slot in the back. It just slides in, and then you just tighten it down. Again, we'll go over this part of the installation whenever we get to it, but I want to show you what the components are whenever they're coming out, so you know what to look for. All right, so underneath here then you have the wiring harness that goes to the monitor. Now there's a lot of wires here. Don't get all upset. Don't get thinking, oh man, forget that. There's only really 2 wires you got to be concerned with right now, unless you're going to have multiple cameras, and even then you may not need to worry about that. You're talking about a ground, which you have to install, and then you have to have a power, which is anywhere from 10 to 32 volts of DC. So you definitely have to do those 2. And then all these other wires, those are just for the monitor to be turned on or off using triggers. And that's what this means. You see this TRIG, camera 1, camera 4. Basically what this is allows you to hook up a power source to any one of these wires And what happens is whenever you, for example, turn on your left turn signal, if you would have a left side camera looking down the left side of your rig, whenever you turned on your left turn signal, it would turn on your left camera automatically. It would power it and display the picture on the monitor. So basically the cameras are all being powered, and there's a signal coming from all of them, but this would allow the monitor to choose which one to display at any one point in time. I'm not going to be doing that. I want to decide which camera I look at and when, and actually the camera monitor that's provided in the system will allow you to choose one camera, two cameras, or all four cameras. This is a very nice feature. I don't know how many people are going to use it unless they have a pretty good size rig, and I would think that motorhomes would use this a lot, because you can mount the cameras again pointing down the sides of your rig, and that way when you go to change lanes or turn a corner, the camera will come on and show you what you need to see. Now we have the Allen wrench, of course, to tighten those said Allen screws. Here's some more. These are Phillips, these knobs and stuff like that. The sun shield, or the glare shield, that's for the monitor. You can see here. And that helps out. I mean, a lot of us are going to mount this in our dash, and whenever you have it in the dash, you're not going to be able to see so well. So that's all the components. You can see not a lot involved here, but I did want to show you what they were, talk about them. All right, almost screwed up. There's a couple more things. They have this overall steel bracket that can be mounted to the monitor so that you can affix this to something solid. You do not have to use this adhesive mount, and the monitor will pivot on this in a couple different ways, depending on if you just screw it through the center. It'll twist left and right, or if you mount it solid, the camera itself, or I'm sorry, the monitor, it will swivel within that bracket. The other thing I forgot to tell you once I grabbed the camera is if you see this little tiny dot right here, and I'm talking about a little tiny dot, guess what that is? That's a microphone. So if you have a significant other that wants to help you while backing the RV, they can just talk gently to the camera, and this thing has a speaker on it. You can boost up quite a bit and you can listen to what's being said. So that's kind of nice. I like that a lot. So welcome to the cab of my truck and all this stuff. I've got a lot of stuff in here. I am so going to be putting this thing to the test as far as its ability to put out a signal and receive a signal without any kind of an issue, because I've got a lot of crap going on in here. So let's talk about some of the stuff I got in here first that may interfere with it. We have Uniden CB, which of course that's going to be radio broadcast. This Kenwood, that has radio obviously coming in, HD radio, but it also connects through via Bluetooth with my phone that sits in this WeBoost signal booster. So I'm going to have a interference boost coming from that. My cell phone will also be in here. Of course, cell phones are going to have their own little range and own little broadcast thing going on. I also have a GPS from Garmin that not only is a camera, but it also has Bluetooth capability, and it also has a traffic receiver. So all of this may interfere. I have a radar detector that may interfere. I also have my Turnpike Easy Pass that may actually interfere somehow. I don't know exactly how, but it could. And then I have my brake controller, and of course that could interfere too. That has the ability to get interfered with signal. So it's going to be interesting to see, because with all this stuff on, that's just going to have more chances of this thing being interfered with. As far as mounting this is going to be a challenge, because I already have my GPS right here. Yeah, I really don't know. So I'm going to play around with this positioning, because this is important. Positioning of this big monitor is important. You got to figure that you need to give these antennas the best chance of receiving a signal as possible. And that means up and fully extended without being blocked. So let me go ahead and play around with this, see what I come up with, show you where I end up mounting it, and telling you why I mounted it there. After very, very, very much deliberation, this is where I decided to mount the monitor. There's a few reasons, and there's a couple things I want to point out to you. First, let's talk about the reasons. I did think about putting it up high here by the rear view mirror, which would would think would be a common place for these to go, based on the fact when you want to see behind you, what do? You look in your rear view mirror. However, I found that if I mounted it low here, I could fully extend the antennas the way that they're supposed to be. If I mounted it up here, I couldn't do so. The antennas would have had to been placed off to the side, and even then, it's a really tight fit up there. It would actually be covering the mirror a little bit. I also wanted to be able to use the visors. I wanted to be able to take and make the visors go up and down just like they're supposed to. And of course, you can't do that whenever you're, have something off to one side or the other. The other thing that I noticed was that if I have it mounted here, I know that my eyesight line is going to be pretty close to the same. If I look out my window to the side mirror, and then my eyesight is traveling over to the mirror that's out here, you can see they're all about the same height. The mirrors and the monitors all about the same height. So I should be able to get all three views relatively easy with the monitor in this place without changing my eye level up to the rear view and then back down for the side mirrors. The only thing that's a negative here that I can see for sure is it's in the sun. I read the instructions, and it says that the operating range of this goes up to 70 degrees Celsius. Of course, I had to Google that because I have no idea what Celsius is here, and it was like 158 degrees. Well, I know on really hot days, 158 degrees is very easy to achieve inside on a dashboard with something that's black. Now, I do have a sun visor that I put up in the window, and it does help quite a bit if it's out in the sun. And it will block this off to make it shady. So hopefully I don't have too much problem with that. Now, as far as mounting, it says to take isopropyl alcohol and clean the area really good that you're going to mount this. Now, I could have used the bracket. However, I noticed that I wanted to do an angle a little bit towards me since it is so far to the right. And although I could have mounted it with the bracket, I really didn't want to drill into my dash. I don't mind drilling into my dash. I've done that with this here. However, I just didn't want to do it. I mean, it's not like my dash is pristine. You can see a big crack here. It's just one of those things that I wasn't 100% sure on. The way I have this mounted on here, I want to make note and let you know that it's wrong. This part, the rounded part, should be placed underneath the monitor. So basically, I have this turned 180 degrees in the wrong direction for mounting. But there was a couple things that I liked. I liked that there was a nice straight edge here. And the other thing is I have this rise in my dash. So even though it's turned 180 degrees, the support that it loses from not having this rounded section directly underneath is gained because it's resting on my dash. So that shouldn't be much of an issue. However, if you're going to make this mount freestanding somewhere in the middle of a flat dash, the rounded portion, you can see the mount there, there's a square part, a flat part in the front, and a round part. The monitor should sit over top of this round part when mounted. That way, the weight of the monitor is pressing down in an area in which it's being supported by the mount. Now, as far as the wiring, that was the other thing. If I mounted it up high here, you got to be concerned about routing your wiring down through the pillar, either side here, and then finally getting all the power underneath, which they give you plenty. Don't get me wrong, you have plenty of wire to get that done. It's just I didn't want to go that far. I didn't want to go through all this. So that's why the monitor's where it's at. You're going to have to choose where you want your monitor, but you have to keep in mind a few things. The antennas are going to be the receivers of the signal. You want those as much as possible to be unobstructive from any kind of block. So now what I gotta do is figure out the wiring here. As far as wiring, it's pretty straightforward. You don't wire anything but the black and the red wire. You need to do the positive and the negative. The red goes to the positive, the black goes to the negative. You can find any of those power sources underneath your vehicle, or you can have it to where the vehicle's got to be running for that to kick on. Now, all these other wires, these are all set up for that trigger system that I was talking about, and that's for multiple cameras. Well, I only have one camera right now, so I don't need to do that. So all I need to do is just make sure I send power to the monitor and get power to the camera when I mount that. At that point, it will connect and it will show me what's going on. Now, as far as turning the camera on and off, that's up to you how you want to wire it. You can make it to where you turn off the monitor here, and when you turn off the monitor using the power button, at that point, you're not going to draw any power. And the camera in the back, after not being connected for a while, it goes into a low power mode. It's something like 8 milliamps an hour that's being used. So it goes into a pretty low power, and there's other components in your car that do the same thing. Even though my stereo's off, you know, there's memory in there and it's being powered. You don't really have to worry about that. I've got a power pack out here for the supply for this monitor. Now, in your case, what you're wanting to do at this point, which I'll show, is tie into some sort of a power source so that the monitor has power. Again, all you're connecting is the red to the positive and the black to the negative. And once those two things are connected, the power on this end is pretty much complete. You don't have to do anything else unless you're wanting to use those signal power wires off the reverse lights or whatever, or if you've got more than one camera. Now, I went ahead and ordered another camera because I checked out the view on this and I like the way that it looks. And I want to go ahead and make the installation for the camera on the rear of this truck. But for the time being, I needed to get power in here quickly so I can use the daylight and the nice weather that we have here in Ohio to do the rear. So let's walk to the rear. See, I've got the camera and I've already went ahead and pulled one of these lights off or out, or just unscrewed it. And you can see here the wires. Now, here's the deal. The white on this is going to be the ground. That's the way it works on RVs. White is ground. And power is usually another color, and it could be blue. In this case, it's kind of a grayish color, I guess. I'm not real sure there. The reason that I pulled this off is I was actually considering, and I'm still kind of considering, the power for these lights as the camera power source, because that's the easiest way to do this. Most of us, if not, most of us should be running with our lights on, you know, driving down the road with your lights on. Very rarely have I ever drove without my lights on, towing this RV. So if I'm towing with the lights on, that means the camera's on. If I turn the lights off, the camera's off. If I get into a campground, it's late at night, I can run with my parking lights on, and the power's always going to be there. So I'm contemplating using these wires for the power. Now, if I do that, I need to find a place to mount the camera. Since this thing works off of infrared light at night, I would probably mount it below this light so that this light and the reflection that comes off of this reflector that's inside doesn't affect my IR sensor. I don't know how much it would, but I really don't want to take that chance. So basically what I'd have to do is drill another hole below for the power cable and route it up to where I can tie into these lights. Now, my other option, which I'm also considering, is running a coat hanger behind this all the way over to that light there, and I'd have to remove that light. Then from that point, once I have the wiring, the power wiring, strung via the coat hanger, you just put the wire on something weighted and you would dangle it down through and bounce it until it gets to where I would remove that light. Once I seen the wiring there, then I have access to power that is on all the time, because I know behind this light there's some other wiring other than the tail light that's here. And the only reason I know that is because I've already pulled this off. So basically what I can say to you guys is, if you're doing this type of installation, you need to decide if you want a camera that is on whenever there's power put to the battery side of the RV, or if you want it to be able to switch on and off via this. If I turn the monitor off inside the truck, this will continue to look for a signal. However, after not being connected over a period of time, which I'm not sure what it is, at that point, it goes ahead and goes into a low power mode. Now, what's that mean to you? It starts drawing only 8 milliamps an hour, which isn't very much. So how much would that do to your battery as far as draining it? Well, if you have a 100 amp hour battery that you use in your RV, it would take 8,750 hours for this thing to drain your battery. The thing is whenever it's in storage mode, I disconnect my batteries, so I don't have to worry about that. It's not very much on the batteries. It's not much at all. So, you know, I'm still contemplating. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but we'll try to figure it out here. Okay, so after much deliberation, and I mean a lot, we decided to go the easy route, and we will tie into the lights for the power. There's a few things that we came across that we kind of knew, but we wanted to double check as far as legality things, and that is these lights that are across the back of your RV. I mean, they're there for a reason. It has to do with how wide your vehicle is. Same with, if you look on my truck, there's lights that are across the front of my truck too. Now, not all trucks are required to have these, and this truck really I don't think is required to have it either. Even though it's an F-250, it's a heavy duty, so there's potential that it could be a weight issue as far as towing and how wide you're towing. And basically they're marker lights that let you know that something is wide. Now, it's not that these are all marker lights. These are actually some sort of clearance lights, the outside lights, and then the 3 lights in the middle, those are some sort of indicators also. And basically what I found out by researching it is you can't get rid of any of the lights. You're supposed to have them on there, and that's in addition to these lights. I'm sure somebody's going to say, oh, I haven't run those lights and you can get away with it, you know, you're not that big, you're, you know, under a certain weight. Well, I came equipped with them. I want to stick with that. So I wanted to make sure that I mounted the camera somewhere that didn't block any of those lights. I mean, I see RVs that have ladder racks that block some of these, you know, external lights, and I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing or not, but you know, it's there. It's the same with the tail lights. People mount stuff on the back of their RV that kind of obstructs the view of the tail light if you're at the right angle. Again, I don't think it's a great idea. I mean, for legality reasons, if you're in a condition where it's really foggy out and it's dark out and stuff, you know, I want as many lights on back here as possible. That's why we converted to LEDs when we did. So what I did is I had my wife sit inside the truck. I changed the position of the camera and had her tell me when we could see this block of wood. Basically, we're about 2 foot away from the bumper and we can see the block of wood whenever we had it mounted or taped up there. That's what I did, and that's what I suggest you do, is just get some tape and tape the bracket up there that holds the camera and just secure it up on top of your RV and then play around with it. Now, you're supposed to do that anyways for a couple of reasons. One, to see as far as, you know, if you've got the room and calculate out the mounting like we did, and also two, to find out if the signal's strong enough from that area. So we moved the truck around, and I did position the truck in front of the RV, and I got a good signal right where that was. I didn't need to go any higher. Initially, I had set it up really high, and then I had adjusted it. It was up there where it's currently at. And then I adjusted the camera to where I could see down. But the problem was I was seeing the edge of the RV. Now, that wasn't too much of a problem because I still was seeing behind the RV quite a bit, but I wanted to be able to see the ground. I wanted to be able to see, you know, somewhat of what we're backing up into so that I can get an idea of how close I am to something. So it's in between these two positions, or basically from here to here, that we're considering. Now, the one thing that I keep on coming back to is when this light is on, I don't want it to affect the camera. And the fact that we're going to be traveling at night occasionally, which we do quite a bit of traveling at night, I don't want that light to again affect the night vision of the camera. I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, as far as cables, whenever they're entering into a unit of any kind, it's best to have the cable with some length to it to where it actually will dip down and then go through the hole. And the reason that you do that at least on houses and stuff, is they call it a drip line. And the reason is if you have something, let's say we mounted the camera here and I put a hole here, and then I ran the cable over and then down into the hole. When it rained, when it got wet, the water would have a nice path to travel down that cable, and it would be trying to penetrate into the hole that you have drilled. And all you have to do is, if you go down a little further and then back up and into the hole, it would get to that point and just drip off. And you don't have to worry about attacking that hole any more than what is just running down the top into that area in the first place. The other thing I was concerned with is, even though this camera seems very durable, the bracket is made of a decent gauge metal. I mean, this is some, you know, it's decent. It's not extremely flexible, and the camera feels very heavy and substantial, and the case on it feels really strong. Just because it feels that strong, and I'm sure it can handle quite a bit, I'm not going to want to mount this thing necessarily in, you know, harm's way. I don't want this to be exposed to any more than it has to. So that's why I was positioning it lower and lower and still seeing if I could get a signal to my truck, because the more I can put it down low, the more this RV is going to protect it from anything coming across the RV, no matter how much we try to do to keep our RV protected. Whenever we're going camping, you got to realize a lot of those campgrounds have low-hanging branches. You might be backing into a site that there might be a pole that's leaning in a weird way. That's why this is cracked, because I did that. All those things, I was trying to make it to where the top of the RV, when it rained and whatever wind that was coming across, it would protect it as much as possible, because it's kind of tucked down in. I mean, just imagine yourself sitting on top of this RV, riding down the highway, you know, experiencing all the wind and the water that's coming at you. And all you have to do is just duck down a little bit and you're going to be protected, just like on motorcycles with windshields. So that's what I was hoping to do as far as the height, is get it as low as possible without being affected by this light, and still getting a good view behind me. All right, so one of the things I want to show you guys, I got the truck running here and I've repositioned it. I got a little break in the signal. Now, I'm trying to overstimulate the receiver on the camera for worst case scenario. So I have my GPS turned on. Of course, it's got Bluetooth. I do need to turn on my stereo. It's got Bluetooth. I have this WeBoost thing. I've got that plugged in. I have my radar detector, and of course my brake controller's on. So there's quite a bit of stuff right now that's could be interfering with it in here. And I don't know if you can tell, but up in the upper left hand corner is a couple of signal strength indicators. Basically, I'm bouncing around between 1 bar and 2 bars, and I think that might be enough, and I'll show you why. Look how far away I am from the camper. I wanted to do, again, worst case scenario. And that is quite a distance there. I don't know how many feet that is, but not only that, but my wife told me that she would rather see the camera positioned a little bit lower than what I had originally. So check that out. There's where the antenna is. So that should tell you that the antenna is shielded quite a bit by the RV. Plus I have that battery pack up there. And even with that said, it's still broadcasting all the way up to the truck, which, again, I know that it's kind of hard to tell with the angles that I'm giving you here with this wide angle camera, but we're quite a distance there. I don't know how many feet that is. That's quite a bit. Let's see how many feet that is. Let's go from right about here's the bumper, and we're off. And this isn't scientific by no means. I mean, the signal could be bouncing off this aluminum a little bit. All right, we're gonna have to go over the, there we go, just a little bit. And we're going. And the front dash, whoop, I hit a chuck hole, like everything in Ohio. The front of the dash right here. So we're at 45 feet, almost 46 feet. I think that's pretty good. You see, I'm pretty much at 2 bars there, bouncing back and forth. I'd like to see that a little bit stronger, so we might have to mount it higher. First, I'm going to play with the antenna, but yeah, we're back closer to where I normally would be. So let's go back and look at the truck here. Yeah, that's about how far my hitch with the weight distribution stuff is. So that's about the right distance. But I would like to see a little bit stronger signal. So let's see what happens if I play with the antenna. In this case, I'm just going to tilt the antenna out like that. So you can see there. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it could. Let's go back, because I did read something in the manual about that. They said it shouldn't be basically perpendicular with a wall if you've mounted it up against the wall. But I'm kind of on a curve, so. But let's see if it made a difference. 3 bars. That definitely made a difference. I got 3 bars now. Okay, it dropped to 2 bars. So it's going back between 2 and 3 now. So that's definitely better. Let's see what happens if I go up a little bit higher with it, though. You saw earlier I had the camera mounted right above this light. So I went ahead and moved it up just a little bit more. The tape's not one to hold so well. But what that did is, of course, put the camera still behind the RV for the most part. You can see it's being protected quite a bit. It's not flush with the roof. And then the antenna, I don't know if I could go straight up with the antenna now or not. But I know in the forward position I was getting 4 bars. But let's go ahead and try that and see if now that it's high enough, if it's going to get a good signal. So back to the truck. Now I'm only showing a couple bars now. Actually like 1 bar, which definitely isn't as good as it just was. So let me go back and change that antenna and see if I can get that to jump up. I guess it's because it's close to this aluminum, even though it's a curve. It's probably causing some sort of an issue. So let's try it there. Yeah, it's definitely up there. It's closer to 3 bars now, and it actually touches 4 bars occasionally. So this is a tough call. It's really a tough call. I liked where it was mounted before, but honestly, maybe it needs to be here. All right, guys, so my wife's working on a project here, but I wanted to show you a couple of things. Number one, that grommet that I thought would not fit in this hole, boy, was I wrong. You have to cram it in there, and it is extremely tight. However, it does fit. So as far as where you route this wire, definitely route it through this bracket. That's the best place to go. What I would do to just ensure no water gets in here is maybe put a bead of silicone inside once you've gotten this position the way that you want and you have the wire slacked the way that you want. Now, as far as the hole that you need to drill, we're talking about a 1/2 inch hole. That's this kind of a bit. So it's a pretty substantial hole that you're going to be drilling in your RV. Just make sure you have it positioned exactly where you want it by using this bracket as a guide. So what I'm going to do is pull this grommet back out of the bracket. Again, it's really in there. It is so sealed off. I couldn't believe how hard it was to get in there. Even with as hot as it is today, it's about 81, and it's still as pliable as it is. It took a while. So what I'm going to do is position this on the RV and then mark where I want this exactly at as far as the hole. Now, as far as this hole, it's much bigger than a 1/2 inch, so you've got room there, but still, the hole needs to be centered as much as possible for this grommet. Once you have it mounted, there's going to be a little bit of rubber on this side. You want it to seal off that hole. Well, as far as the wiring, you can see I've already got the hole drilled, and then what you do is, of course, run this end to the wiring that you're going to tie into. So all I did was just kind of feed the wire down through the hole. This gives me the plug that the camera plugs into, and then this gives me the end to connect to our power here. Again, the white is going to be the ground, and then this other color is going to be the power. Basically, the way they do a lot of these is they have a little twist top on here, and then once it's twisted, they smash it so it can't come undone. So the only way you can really get that out is to unsmash it and pull the wires out. And you can see how little power these things must draw because, man, they're small. They're tiny. I barely could strip them with my wire strippers because they wanted to break the wire. So what we're going to do then at that point is take these wires and twist them in with a couple of new twist wire nuts. Alright, so I've got the wires connected here. Now I don't have them taped up. I'm not going to tape them up quite yet. What I did instead is I connected the camera, and now I'm going to connect my truck to give power to the lights. That way I can check to make sure that the wiring's correct. I mean, I could be telling you something that is inaccurate, or maybe your RV got wired backwards somehow. So you want to definitely check before you put all this together and seal it all up if the wiring in this condition is correct. That way you know from that point forward you can just move towards securing everything. So let me go do that and make sure everything's okay. All right, so the one other thing that I forgot to tell you why we were mounting it as low as we were is because you can see or hear what it sounds like up on top of the camper. It is definitely susceptible to wind noise. It's not extremely windy. You can see the flag out there blowing around, but it is windy. And one of the things of mounting it lower on the RV is allowing it to blocking some of that wind, which works out pretty well, which I'm glad about that. Now, the other choice is if there's some kind of sort of a signal degradation, they do make an external antenna for about $13 that you can hook to it. And it will go out and bring that signal in no problem. So it's just an option. So I went ahead and drilled the first hole, and I've got some butyl tape here, which is going to be cut right up the middle here so I can slide it down over top of the wire, and I'll pull the screw out and then put the screw back in again through the butyl tape. But also, in addition to the butyl tape being in there, I'm going to make sure that that screw doesn't come loose. And this again is where I know I'm anal, so just forgive me. I've got a lock washer that I'm going to put on the head of this pan screw. This is just a sheet metal screw. It's a zinc sheet metal screw, so probably best to get stainless so it doesn't rust, but it'll do a pretty good job. And then a washer to help spread the load around here. And then I'm going to tighten it all down, and right before I put it all the way and tighten it all the way down, I'm going to put a little bit of red thread locker on here to help it seal the threads. That way I know it's not going to come loose. Now, if I had my way, I mean, if I was redoing the roof again like we did in the past, I would have had this peeled off, and I would put a little piece of wood behind here, like, you know, they've got paneling behind these scrap pieces of paneling to help these screws fasten in and stay fastened into the sheet metal. But yeah, like I said, I know it's overkill. In this case, what I'll tell you to do is just, you have to have butyl tape. Use the grommet, put the butyl tape behind the bracket here and all around, and maybe even in this hole a little bit, and then go ahead and run your screws in through the butyl tape into the sheet metal. I'm going to tell you that that's going to work just fine. I don't think that there's going to be an issue, but again, I'm a little bit anal, so I'm going to make sure that it's double secured. There's a couple of things that you need to know. First of all, it's mounted here. I haven't wired it inside the truck yet, but that's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go to the fuse box, and I'm going to find a positive wire and ground the negative side, and that'll be it. And of course, I've got to install another camera on the back of my truck. But as far as the RV, again, your RV is going to be different. You're going to mount it differently, and you're going to have preferences that are different. Now, I've got this sun shield down as far as possible without it being in the view of the camera. I also set up the view of the camera to not view directly down below onto the RV quite yet. I think at this time I want to be able to see more behind me back this way. Not in this jungle here, but as we're traveling down the road, than I do looking straight down. Now that may change. I might decide I don't need to see behind me as far as I do, and I might want to point the camera even further straight down if I'm running into situations that I'm backing into stuff. However, I think that you should have a point of reference, And for us, with the help of my wife, who sat in there and radioed me, we have a couple of radios. That's always a good idea to have that when you're working on something. Of course, I could talk to her through the camera because there is a microphone, and then she would respond on the radio. I wanted to make it to where the front edge of this board was just barely visible in the camera, because what that represents is exactly 24 inches from the bumper. So I know that when I'm backing up and something starts to disappear out of view of this camera on the monitor, so at the bottom of the monitor, once that picture is showing something slowly disappearing, then I know at that point I am closer than 24 inches. Or I know that once it disappears, I can go back another foot and I'll be okay. Again, I just wanted a point of reference, and it's a good idea to make some sort of a marker and then adjust your camera inside so that that marker is just barely visible at the bottom of the screen. That way you know how far you're away. Then, take a measurement. Now, as far as being able to see back, we can see back pretty decently. Now, I can't really use this as a gauge of how far back we can see because there is a hill here. So we can actually see further than what this shows because there is a rise. There's quite a bit of a rise to get on that side of this ditch. But that is mounted. I do have the cable dripped, like I mentioned, which is just nothing but a little loop. I don't know if you can see that in there, but I just looped it around and then it goes inside. I haven't put any kind of silicone or anything on this yet. I do want to put some sort of urethane, I think, all the way around this to help adhere it to the RV and help with vibration. The only thing that I see that might be an issue at some point, which it may not be, is as we're driving down the road, the rain and the wind, as it's being captured by this sun shield, as it's trying to come over the RV, it might wrap around and make it to where it drips over the camera, maybe make a little extra noise on the microphone. I'm not sure yet how the aerodynamics of that's going to work. But, there's things that you can do to correct that if you want. I mean, you could just put a big piece of foam up here and block all this, but right now I think this is going to do me well. Now, as far as the rest of the install, what we're going to move to next is going to be the installation of the other camera inside my truck, and I don't know if I'm going to put it externally on the cap. That's probably going to be best. Or I could actually put it on the front of the RV looking up towards my truck. I could always do that too. But we're most likely going to put it on the truck. That way, whenever we're backing in other locations other than just backing into the RV, especially with that hitch on the back, I can see how far that hitch sticks out. That'll make it a little bit easier for backing and hooking up, which I can pretty much hook up without it, but it'll make it a little bit faster. Here's the extra camera, of course made in China. It's just like the one that comes in that kit that I installed. It's just the camera itself. This is what it'll look like if you order extra cameras. Just like you imagine, camera, the shield, and then the antenna, and finally we have the hot wiring, which I have to do that in the back of my truck, believe it or not. And then an Allen wrench, which I find this Allen wrench to be the wrong size, but I have Allen wrenches. Maybe I was trying to over tighten, possibly, I'm not sure. And as far as these screws and that, maybe we can use them. It's kind of hard to tell because I don't know exactly where I want to mount this yet. I was talking over with my wife and saying, well, maybe I want to mount it inside the truck versus outside the truck, even though, again, this can handle plenty of weather. But then I would like the view from outside the truck, because of course looking through the glass of the hatch here might be an issue. But yeah, let's go ahead and start getting to the process of where I can mount this. Now, I don't want you to be discouraged. A lot of this isn't hard work. This is just decision making. And some of you may have a situation where you know exactly where you want to put your camera. You know exactly how you want to do it. Maybe you even have the wiring available for it already. There's a lot of RVs that already come pre-wired for a backup camera. So that would make it a lot easier. All right, so I've got a hole drilled and I'm not much further along because I needed to do a little housekeeping. Again, I had to run power back here to power the cable that plugs into the camera. Now that I've got the hole drilled, let me talk about the mounting. I was thinking about doing it on the inside, but I didn't know how the IR was going to react with the tinted window on the back here. That was one of the questions that I had. And I know that the reflection would have caused an issue. There had been times of the day that you wouldn't be able to see out quite as well. If you don't have a tinted cap, that might be best, to tell you the truth. Now, if you don't have a cap on your truck, you're going to have to find somewhere else to mount it, you know, back on your truck cab. And that, of course, it's all going to be personal, your own decision type thing. So now that I've got that hole drilled, the thing that I was kind of concerned with was how I was going to retain it in the cap. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just use the nuts and the screws that were provided. Now, I did grab some washers of my own. These washers didn't come with it because I want some support on the backside because it's going to be up against that fiberglass. So, of course, the same thing as before. I'm going to use butyl tape, and I'm going to, in this case, drill holes where this mount is going to be secured. You can see the 4 holes there. You could also utilize just a couple of screws, you know, out in these outer portions if you'd like to do that. That would give you some kind of a tilt. It's all up to you what you have going on. Now, let me tell you the disadvantages to having it out here. The cap's not protecting it very well, but it is protecting it a little bit. Going through a car wash was never really my thing. Most car washers, for whatever reason, you would think in this day and age, my truck's not that long. It is an extended cab and it is a long bed, but it seems like that all the new trucks today, the quad cabs with the short beds, you don't see much for quad cabs and long beds. And of course, dualies, forget about it. So there's not a lot of car washes that accommodate my truck. So I'm usually doing the car wash myself. However, if I was to go through a car wash, of course, that camera would be a major concern. So this is pretty much ruling out me ever driving through a car wash that has brushes. You know, a spraying wash, that's okay. As far as any obstructions or anything like that, I don't think I'm going to have much of a problem. What I mean by obstructions is actually the camera looking down. Now, the other thing that I was really concerned with, and it still might be an issue, but you know, I just couldn't mount it anywhere else that I'd feel comfortable with, and that is the LED third brake light. I mean, that thing is bright. So again, I might have to do something to where I blacken the top of this LED if it's causing interference at night, which I'll have to test that. We'll have to test it, and I'll tell you if there's some sort of an issue there with the night vision. It would kind of, you know, suck that every time I hit the brake light at night, the view would go blank because it would just blind the camera. But we're going to have to find that out on our own, and that's what I'm here for, to install it, show you how to install it, and then give you the results. Well, if you have a fiberglass cap like I do, I'm going to tell you that you need to drill 3/16 inch holes and use the screws that come with the kit, and I'm going to tell you, it does a very good job of sealing off. The screws were actually trying to grab the fiberglass before I even put the nuts on the back side. So what comes in the kit, like I said, those are pretty darn good. You can see how much it's squeezing out of the butyl tape, which I'll cut off here in a few days, give it a chance to settle, and then just give it a little bit more of a snug to make sure that it's firm. So now what I'm going to do is mount the camera in the bracket, put the sun shield on, and then start doing some adjustments. The camera's mounted, and I had to get out my hitch for the RV so I could get an idea of how to keep that in view, and also then to adjust the vision back as far as possible. What I want to do is just be able to barely see that at the bottom of the screen, just enough to help me with the distance whenever I'm out. Like I said, I really don't have much trouble hooking up, but I remember there was a time when I first started hooking up our old pop-up camper. Man, I really enjoyed having a backup camera, which used to go on the license plate. The other thing is once we're, disconnected and I'm out, checking out the site, going into town, whatever, I need to know how far this is back. I want to make sure that I don't back into stuff, and I haven't so far, but it's a good idea to have, some clue how far you can back, and you kind of get a sense of it, but this will just make it so much easier. So I'm going to get inside, I'm going to do some adjustments, and I'm going to see what I can get away with here. Okay, I'm going to give you a big tip that's going to help you a lot, because they don't have this anywhere except buried in the manual. On the back of the cameras, there's a button that says pairing. So I just assumed that I needed to push that button for pairing. Basically plug in the camera and then select the camera that I wanted to pair, basically on the monitor. You have a choice of cam 1, cam 2, cam 3, cam 4. I wanted to do cam 4. That way I could possibly use those parking indicators, like I said before. And I tried it with it plugged in to start with, and it would not pair. It just wouldn't pair. So I read through the instructions, something that I had already done, but apparently I just assumed that since there was a button on the back of the camera that I could pair it somehow my own way. So what you need to do to pair a camera, an additional camera, is not power the camera. Do not power the camera. Basically, have everything ready to go, but keep it unplugged. Then go to your monitor, pick the camera that you want to, or the cam setting that you want that camera to connect to. And in my case, again, I wanted it to connect to cam 4. Once you're on cam 4, you go through the menu and you go to pairing and you click OK. When you do that, it's going to start a countdown from 50 seconds. Within that 50 seconds, plug in the camera then. And the power being generated at that time will allow it to pair. Now again, I haven't done any adjustments whatsoever. I know this camera angle is pretty crappy, but this is what it looks like. And I've got plenty of room to tilt the camera up and still be able to see that ball mount. So what I'm going to do is back my truck up to the RV and connect it so the lights can be turned on. That way the other camera will be activated and we can screw around with these settings. Alright guys, so this is very cool. Everything I see about this thing is really cool. And I chose the cameras that I wanted in the quad mode during my selection in the menu, which you can see here is up in the upper left hand corner. I'm going to see if I can make this volume go away. Let's see here. We're going to do menu. We're going to go to picture. Okay. And then we're going to go all the way down to volume. Let me go ahead and hit OK. The cool thing about this is, from what I can tell on the volume, whatever you set it at is, going to be for both cameras, which is fine. That's fine with me. So if we go to, let's go ahead and get out of here, to the next camera, which is that camera there, you can hear the volume still really low. Now, the other thing, this little dot that's up here to let you know that another camera is available. That's what that is. Now, as far as your selections for the camera, again, once you have a picture up for a camera, if you go to that quad mode, you can choose which ones you want to split with. You could do all 4 of them. You could do not only that, but what they call a quad H pattern. It's just nice. It's just different choices. That's what I was wanting. So I can split between camera 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, and that's what I did, camera 1 and 4. So whenever I go to the quad mode, menu, get out of that. Now let's go ahead and go through here, and you can see here's the quad mode. And it puts up both those pictures, which I love that. That makes it to where you can see, both things at the same time. I don't know if I have a need for this necessarily, but again, it's all about options. They are letting me choose that. So if I want to drive down the road and be able to see my trailer and my generator, because my generator mounts on the tongue, and you know, anything else going on back there, and the back of the trailer, I can do that. Or I don't have to. I can just go ahead and put it on the camera that I want to see, which is very nice. Now, again, you can rig up these triggers that power on automatically. So I could set it up to when I put it in reverse, this comes up. But I don't think that I really need to. You could also do a scan. And what it'll do is it will bounce back and forth between the cameras. So if you're just driving down the road and you casually want to look at both things, it'll go back and forth between them automatically. Again, options. That's all I was looking for. So this is working out quite well. Oh, by the way, let's go out here and take a look at this. The antenna works down. So I knew that it probably would because I'm so close. And as far as the adjustment, no problem. Look at that. Backed me right up to it. Now I will have to say, in the shadows of this truck, I couldn't see all this black very well. What that makes me think I might want to do is put a big yellow sticker or paint this ball part of the socket, the receiver part of the ball. I might want to paint that a bright yellow so it shows up on camera a little bit better. That was a little bit difficult in this shadow, and I've even got the contrast adjusted quite a bit. It could be just because of how bright it is, and of course I like to try it at night, and we're going to see what all this looks like at night. Now I'm going to tackle the wiring part of this. Now this is probably going to be the most vague part of the installation as far as my video is concerned, is because it's going to be different for everybody. If you have it mounted on the ceiling, you're going to be routing, you know, your cables down through the pillars. If you have it mounted in a console or on the dash, like in my case, that's going to be different. And then you have different options. Now, to use your cigarette lighter with an accessory that you can also purchase separately, I'll try to put the link down below for that. I think I have it. And what that does is allow you to use a plug-in adapter like here. Now, I could, because I have the outlets for it, plug in the monitor right there. And that would allow me to turn the monitor on and off as I need, just by pushing a button. And, you know, it still could be an option, but they do give you a lot of cable. You can see here how long this cable is. So mounting it on the roof, here, let's go ahead and stretch this thing out. Okay, let's get an idea of how long this cable is. There you go. Yeah, there's some length there, that's for sure. But what this would do is allow you to route it. Again, if you're routing it on the roof or on the ceiling, you know, there's a lot of cable here. But I'm going to show you here, as far as if you have an old style fuse panel like I've got, and use these old style fuses like that. Here's something that, again, I'll put the link down below for this too. These are really nice. This gives you a power outlet in place of one of your fuses. Let me show you what that looks like. All right, so this is pretty self-explanatory. This part here looks like a fuse. So what you do is you pull the fuse out that you want to tap into. And this could be a fuse that is only powered on whenever the vehicle is powered on, which is most likely what I'm going to do. And then you have a place to put a, you know, crimp a power wire. So you have access to that. And then, of course, obviously, you have a place to put your fuse in again. This actually has two places for two fuses. And the reason is because, you know, you're going to want to make sure that the item that you're tying in has a fuse built into it. That way, in case there's a short, you know, your fuse will blow and not the item. So it's kind of nice. And this is like, if I go into a 20 amp fuse here, that means that I would have to have a 20 amp short in the circuit for the fuse to blow. But over here, I might only have like a 3 amp fuse. So in case, you know, whatever item I have this hooked up to has a short in it, you know, or some sort of resistance, it will blow in 3 amps. So again, a really nice item. The link will be down below, and this makes it a lot easier to wire. You know, you can see the way I've got it wired now with a lot of things that I have going on in my vehicle, and that's a little tricky to do. This makes it a lot easier. Well, if you got enough electronic stuff wired into your factory fuse box like I do, it starts to get to look like spaghetti, but that harness does work pretty well. You can see right here, that was actually a blank spot that was used for airbag, which I don't have an airbag, you know, in this F250. So we can close this up, and all the wiring's tucked in, except of course this piece here coming down from the dash, but there's the shot. The way I've got it adjusted, which I decided on, was just where you could see the bumpers here in the corners. And that's a benefit of this lens, actually. You can see it's kind of distorted, but I kind of like that because I can see these bumper corners, and they'll give me an idea how close I am as far as that goes. And then of course I don't have my hitch on right now, so you can't see my hitch, but I've got it positioned where it's easy to see, and I can actually see my weight distribution bars where they connect on the hitch too, not just the ball. So that's going to help out quite a bit. So as far as this is concerned, the installation is done. We got to do some testing, you know, with night vision, stuff like that. And I am going to now, before we even get into that, I'm going to wire the other monitor and camera system that I have for my son's van, and that's the wired system. The big benefit of having a wired system is there is no video degradation. The image that you get is the image that is pretty much being captured. There is no possible way that you're going to lose a signal unless you lose power or the cable is cut. The disadvantage is you have to run a cable from the front to the rear of your system, but you can save money by doing that. Those systems are always a little bit cheaper. And the thing is you still have to drill holes to mount your cables, even for the wireless cameras. So if you're going to cut a hole in your cap, in my case, or in your RV, and you're wanting to go a distance, just make sure you buy the right length cable and go for it. I mean, that's a big plus. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that wired system now and show you what that's all about. And then we're going to do testing on both. All right, now for the unboxing of the wired system. We're going to take a look at what's in this box, which is something that you have to get separately, and that's the cable. This is the cable in which you will dictate by how long your vehicle is. That's what you're going to end up purchasing. So you can see this is 10-meter cable. Basically, again, having to convert it into feet, you're talking about, it's over 32 feet. It's almost 33 feet. Originally, I ordered this for the truck, but I knew that I was going to put it in my son's van. So yeah, this is plenty. This is plenty long enough. This will allow it to go from the front to the rear. Of course, my truck, it's an extended cab long bed truck, and it would have been plenty for that too. Go ahead and open up the box and take a look inside of this one. It's a model number MC7101. Now, there are extra camera inputs, so you could buy more cameras, but guess what? You're going to need more cable. That's how that works. So let's open this up and see what it looks like inside the box. And don't this look familiar? It looks just like the unboxing of the other one. Here's the camera specs, same sensor. There's a lot of stuff that's the same here. Of course, this one's going to be connected via cable though. And of course the manual. The monitor looks awful lot alike as far as the other one's concerned. I mean, it is a 7-inch. The screen looks the same. The display pretty much looks the same. Except this one has a dead spot all the way across the front. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a like a crack or something all the way across the screen. That's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's going to affect the camera or not, but hopefully it don't. Maybe it's just the way the protective cover is on this. I mean, that's a possibility. Let's take a look here. Yeah, there's a line on this protective cover. So just disregard that. That's part of this cover. Whenever I peeled it away, you can see there's a line on there. Well, it scared me for a minute. I thought, how could that be broke? As far as the connections and wires, of course, you could expect more. This is definitely different than the other connector. You can see here this is much bigger, and there's a lot of pins inside there. And we've got some sort of a power cable, which This just plugs into the cigarette lighter. Oh, that's kind of nice. There's a push on button. You know, this would be a nice thing to have on a lot of cigarette lighter accessories, where you could just push them to turn them off without unplugging them, because a lot of that plug in, unplug kind of thing, that destroys stuff after a while. But yeah, there's a power cable there, or power port. Let's see what else we got in here. Again, same thing as the last monitor. Here's the sun shield that goes over top of the monitor. Just kind of fits over top there. Go ahead and set this off to the side. Maybe you can still take a look at it. And then this time I didn't forget. There's the bracket for the mounting. And let's go ahead and get this stuff out of the way. We can get to the camera. And the camera has just 4 pins on it, which of course we know where that connects to. And again, the camera looks a lot like the other one. I mean, it's very similar, because other than the wiring, that's really the only difference. We have an Allen wrench that's designed to tighten those same fittings, or same connections. And then these are for the bracket, if you want to mount the bracket differently. This is the one that I used in the truck, if you guys remember, for the dash mount. And yeah, we might be using it again. It's hard to tell. Now, my son's van obviously is definitely different than the truck, but this is where the work is going to be done here. And it's all labeled really well, pretty straightforward. Here you have a fuse, an inline fuse. If you look underneath this dust cover, it's just like you would think the fuse is, at least on the newer cars, not as old as mine, definitely not as old as my son's, but the newer cars, it's like a little mini fuse. But it has a connector here for a quick connect. That's really wild. I'm surprised that they have this good of connections for their wires, but they do. And then again, this is for your power supply. You know, that just plugs in like that. This goes into your cigarette lighter, so that's going to power the harness. And then at that point, you can determine your camera setup, how you want it to happen. And again, it's up to 3 cameras, so here you go. Cam 1, Cam 3, Cam 2. Kind of did that backwards, but yeah, 1, 2, 3 cameras. So obviously we only have 1 camera here, so I'm only going to be using the 1 harness extension, and then of course that's going to go into the camera. Now, if you wanted to just make little short cameras, that's all you'd have to do here. And then it's pretty, straightforward. The reason that they give you the cigarette lighter is to make it easy. You don't have to use the cigarette lighter. Here, let's go ahead and show you. That's what these 2 little things are. You can pull these out, and it will release these wires, and then you can just wire it in directly like you would on the other one. It's a nice feature. I kind of like that. So the hardest part about, again, a wired system is the wires themselves. So what we're going to do now is take these things out to my son's van, and we're going to, again, start with the most important thing. In this case, find a place for the monitor and do all the hard wiring up front. First thing you got to consider is where you're going to place these things. You got to remember that the monitor is relatively big, and in this case, we really don't want to hurt his van. We don't want to damage it in any way, because it's a 1988, and it only has, well, now it has 98,000 miles, and it's, not rolled over, and it's in very good condition. So we don't want to do anything to really cause any negative effects to the van's value. So the monitor, as far as being mounted, seeing how it doesn't have antennas, can pretty much go anywhere, but then you've got to be concerned with the routing of the wire, and the power wire, stuff like that. And the camera too. We got to be considered about where we're going to mount that. So we need to take a look at some options, and we'll talk to you about why we chose where we did. Okay, so without screwing up the van's interior any more than we have to as far as drilling holes, we did use the adhesive mount that it has. Again, the adhesive mount isn't made to go on the way that we have it here, but it works this way because whatever downward motion that this is, stressing on this mount is being stopped really by the dash. So that should help with the support. Now, this is all metal. This is a soft metal. It's not plastic, and it's very pliable, so you can bend it, like in our case, to make the contours work for the mount. And this is going to be probably the best place for it. We didn't want it too high, too low. We didn't really want his vision blocked, and it's not at all here. And the cable's just going to run down through here, and then we're going to put it underneath and tie it in with the rest of the harness. Now, of course, this, again, is not going to pertain necessarily to your situation. You may have it to where you need to run it from up top, or you may want it off your windshield. You may want to mount it on your dash. And the wiring, of course, is going to be different unless you have this exact same van. So there's really no sense in us showing you that. Now, we know that we're not going to use the cigarette lighter adapter option, which is really nice to have if you've got an extra port. And basically, this thing is the on-off button like I showed you in the unboxing. You just plug this into your cigarette lighter and turn it on or turn it off as needed. But to remove the wires is nothing more than you pushing these two retainers down. That releases the wires, so you can just pull them out. That way you can do a hard wire into the fuse panel. Again, I'm going to be using the push connector that I showed you before for the fuses, and we'll get to that. Of course, the links will be down below for it, like everything. But we're kind of caught up here. We've got to hide a lot of the cables behind this kick panel. If you look at the harness, there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of wires. Now, this is for options. Again, that's the one thing this company gives you, is a lot of options. Other than that wire and that wire, which are mandatory, and this for the camera, which is mandatory, you still have the option of having a reverse trigger wire or a couple of camera trigger wires. And what that does is allow you to trigger whichever camera you hook up. So in this case, we're going to be using camera 1, and camera 1's just going to be on. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's just going to be on. But if we wanted to use another camera, like camera 3, the camera 2, you can set up the wires to trigger those cameras. So if I put it in reverse, that turns on one camera. If I turn on my left turn signal, that turns on another camera. If I turn on my right turn signal, that turns on another camera. That allows the thing to be automated, so you can see with just a quick glance up to the dash what's on your left side during a turn, or what's on your right side during a turn, or what's behind you when you're starting to back up. We're not going to do that. We're going to make this to where he can see behind him and check on his cargo. He does have a cargo carrier that he's going to have behind him to see if anything's falling off, and plus when he's backing up, how close he can get the stuff. Now, in our case, we've got two things going on here. We have another installation that I'm not shooting a video on, but basically a dash cam with a rear view camera, and it has a recording option. Now, this one does not have a recording option like the wireless. This is just a standard monitor with, you know, a lot of options as far as how you can see the things that, you know, the cameras that are connected to it, but it doesn't have a recording option like the MC7101 that we were showing you on my wireless system. But other than that, it's pretty much all the same. So we're in the process of routing the cable for the rear camera for that system at the same time when we do the cable for this system. So let's go to the back and show you what we got going on there. Now, we haven't chose a mounting point quite yet. We do know it's going to be up top here. Exactly where, we're not 100% sure. I talked to my son. He does not have a problem with not going through car washes. Apparently the car wash he does go through is a brushless anyways, but we're going to run the wire to the front. Again, this is the biggest disadvantage of a wired system, is that you have to route the wire from the rear of the vehicle to the front of the vehicle, or wherever the camera is mounted at. And like I said, since we're already in here doing this installation, we went ahead and decided we're going to run the cable also for this other dash cam camera, so we have them both. But yeah, so far pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to end up doing is drilling a hole in the roof here and putting in that same stuff that we've been using all along, the butyl tape, and then securing it to the roof, and the cable will then pass through, and again, we'll route it to the front. All right, so we went with a new location. As you can see here, it's mounted on the door, and the reason is because the roof is rounded up here, and I couldn't really get a good angle and also to where I think it would seal off very well. Actually, if it was a little bit further up on the roof, it would, you know, give you a good view behind, but the drip rail on the van would have caused an issue with the view looking down. Obviously, he's going to have a very good angle this way, and the nice thing is in case you are doing a van like this, if you drill in this location and you just take the time and just kind of push the cable along, you can feed it all the way across here by twisting it and pushing it, and then it will drop, and you just kind of dangle it down until you get it to where it's coming out of one of these holes here. And in this case, you can see it's right next to the other cable that we already ran for the other camera. So what we're going to do is connect these two wires together to give them strength, allow them a little bit more rigidity, moving in and out, and then I'm going to re-affix this a little bit more permanently over here to where everything holds a little bit more solid. Again, this is going to be different for you, and again, this is the most, you know, the most painful part of having a wired system, that you have to route the wire. But the overall result is better than a wireless system because it's always going to be there as long as the cable don't break, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that. You got to make sure that you protect it from where it's going to be bending a lot. But he's not in and out of the back of his van that often. Even when he's out on the road, you can see this is, of course, you guys know, an RV project that we're in the process of putting together, and we're just waiting for our RV project to be finished so we can finish this one up here. But yeah, this will allow him to have the mobility that these cables need without them breaking or getting scraped or anything like that. So let's go ahead and run all these wires up to the front, see how much extra we have, see where we can tuck it away at, and then we'll connect the camera and see what it looks like. By the way, the hole that you have to drill for these cables is much bigger than the one that I had to drill for my wireless camera. You know, the wireless camera only has power wires to be concerned with, so the plug that goes through is relatively small. This one here is much bigger. It's bigger than 1/2 inch. It's as big as the bracket is, so we definitely got to open up the hole bigger than what that bracket hole is, or right at the same size as the bracket hole, which I think turned out to be about 3/4 of an inch. It's pretty close to that, just to let you know. We're all done. The camera is mounted up, and it's in a good place. It's in a really good place. He can see his door handle and parts of the trim down here, so that's going to help him as far as judging distance whenever he's backing up. Now, as far as with it pointed as far down as it is right now, you can see that, right? I mean, it looks like it's pointing straight down. You see the shadow back here? He still sees about this much of the shadow. That much of the shadow is still in his view from here, so you can get an idea how far away he is. And of course, we're at a weird angle because this is an action cam that you're watching this through, so it's kind of the same distortion. So there's quite a bit of room that he can, you know, deal with. As far as a rear view camera, if he wanted to, he could point it out more, but he does have this little camera here for that, and that's really what that's for. So let's go inside here. Now, there's no backup lines on this because we don't have it set up as a backup camera, and again, you can see what he can see in the bottom of his screen. Now, even though it's on, you know, the one door, you can still see quite a bit on both sides of the van, which is what we were shooting for. And we can screw around and bend the bracket a little bit and tighten it in a certain way to where, you know, we could point it a little bit more towards that side that he's short on, but this is plenty to help him with backing. And again, he has a cargo carrier that he puts on his hitch in the back, and he wants to be able to see his cargo and pay attention what's going on behind him whenever he's backing up against anything. And this should give him plenty of view as far as that goes. Now, as far as the installation and the wiring, I did get it all hidden away in here. The cable that I got was extra long because it was going to go into my truck. However, since we put it in this van, we just hid all of it in that kick panel there. And it's pretty straightforward on the wiring, as we showed before. These are very good products. I'm very happy with both of them. the fact that the wireless model is a little bit more expensive, but way cheaper than the alternatives that are out there. I'm really happy with that one. But this one being a wired model, it's even less expensive. If I can find the link for this, I'll have this link down below. The link will definitely be down below for the wireless system. And pick up either one of them. I think that you'll be happy with what you got here as far as the view and the installation. Everything was plug and play. It really is plug and play.
One of the things I wanted to show you is the camera's ability to see at night. Basically, it has some infrared lights that really help illuminate, and I mean they're pretty bright too, really help illuminate behind the truck or the RV or my son's van. So what I'm going to do here is first, we're in the truck. I'm not going to be hooking up the RV, and I'm not going to be towing down the street to be able to show you what that looks like. But I will show you what I can in the truck. Now, we're going to be doing it through the camera. I'm not going to do a direct screen capture, but you should get a good idea of what that looks like. There's a couple of things that I want you to take note of on the monitors, on the two different systems. So first, let's talk about the truck system. So let's go ahead and do lights out, or almost lights out. It's close to lights out. Right now, I have the interior cab light on, and you're looking at the blackened monitor. Now, what I had to do, and I didn't realize this until it got nighttime, is make the system only come on whenever my key is energized in the ignition. Before, I had it wired direct because I thought, no big deal, you know, as long as I can turn off this monitor, that's going to put the camera in the back in a low power mode. Because if you guys remember what I had mentioned before, the camera goes into a low power mode when it's not connected to the monitor. So I figured, why not just make it to where I turn off the monitor, you know, whenever it's nighttime. Well, the problem with that is if it's always powered, regardless if it's on or not, these buttons down here are illuminated, and the power button's illuminated. So even though I have the monitor screen turned off, the monitor is still receiving power. Don't think, like I did, that there's a need to have this monitor hooked up to a constant power source all the time for connectivity reasons. This thing connects really fast with the camera, even if it goes from a dead cold, like it is right now, a cold power start, into full mode. It's really quick. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. You saw how fast that switched, right? That was extremely quick. I mean, we went from no power whatsoever to me turning on the truck and everything connected really fast. Now, here's a feature that I'm not real fond of. You know, full disclosure, I'm not real fond of this. Right now, it's not in an auto dim mode because I have my light on inside the truck. So let's turn the light on, you know, the cab light off, and watch what happens to the monitor. I don't really care for those blue lights underneath. I like the fact that the monitor dims, but I don't like that the blue lights, that they're always on. You cannot get rid of those blue lights unless, which again, I'll turn on the dome light inside the truck. And now the screen will get brighter too. Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that the auto dim is doing something with the controls. I mean, I understand that at night you need to be able to see those buttons, but I just don't like it. I don't like that feature. I wish you could turn those lights off. Now, as far as what you can see though, man, is that good or what? I mean, I can see inside my messy garage. And again, I'm sorry that I'm not capturing this screen direct for you, but I can see inside my messy garage. And I mean, it's incredible how bright it is back there. Now, how do you know if your camera is in a low power mode? Meaning, once you turn off your monitor inside here, which we can do that easy enough, just like that. Again, this is what it looks like
if you've got power running to it constantly. The camera will go to a low power mode. So let's go outside and I'll show you what that looks like, or what to look for. I know it's relatively dark out here, but you can see those 4 lights. See how they just went off? It's in low power mode. So it's roughly about a minute, and that will go into low power mode. So right now the camera is only drawing 8 milliamp hours off of the battery, which is fine. That is so little. That's just a tiny bit of power. Okay, let's go ahead and turn this on again so you can take a look here. The other thing that I didn't really care for too much was that the grid lines that you're looking at here, those cannot be adjusted. I've gone through the menu many times, many different ways, and I cannot find any settings whatsoever that allows me to adjust those lines. And what I mean is moving them to the left, moving them to the right, moving them closer to the truck, further away from the truck. There's nothing that I can do to make those lines change. Now, I normally wouldn't say anything about that and just thought, well, it's a feature that maybe wasn't being, added to this system. And guess what my son's wired system, which is cheaper, can do? My son's system, you can adjust those lines. You can move them forward, you can move them back, you can move them left and the right. It's nice. It's very nice. The other thing that you can do with his that you can't do with this one here is if it's in the auto dim mode, meaning if it's dark inside and outside, and it goes to where those blue lights appear on the bottom of the monitor and the dash, the monitor itself dims, on his system, you can actually change the brightness of the auto dim. So you can make the auto dim really dark or really bright, even though it's on a automatic dim. Now, once the light's on inside or it's bright outside, you can then adjust the brightness of your screen. Now, I can adjust the brightness of my screen, but I can only adjust it in the brightness mode with or without the auto dim on. It doesn't make a difference. Auto dim on or off, that's all there is to it. So as far as his system in his van, I have to think his is a little bit better. I mean, as far as the monitor adjustments and the eyes, easy on the eyes. So what did I have to do to help myself out? Well, I know you guys don't know the way that I drive, but whenever I'm driving at night, and especially when we're pulling the RV, I'll turn down my dash lights considerably. My gauge lights are all on dimmers. Everything gets dimmed down. This here is on my brake controller's on a real low setting, and I turn down, all the lights, even my radio. I've got the lights turned down quite a bit on that. My GPS has a brightness level that you can lower the brightness down, and it has a night mode. I do all that. I make it really dim because the way I see it is whenever you're in a movie theater and you want to watch the movie, whenever it starts, everything gets real dark in the theater. That way you can see whatever's lit up trying to view the movie screen. Well, I feel that's the same way inside the truck or inside the vehicles when you're driving. At night, the last thing you want is a bunch of lights inside that kind of distract your eyes from what you need to be seeing, and that's what your headlights are lighting up. So this being as bright as it is, I did have it facing me quite a bit more than what it currently is. And I just turned it. And you know what? It helped out considerably. Now, if I still have an issue on down the road, maybe I'll get some sort of a screen protector that also does some sort of a tint. I know they have anti-glare shields and stuff like that for computers. I'll play around with that to see if I need to do that. But here's the thing. I don't have to have that on. I don't have to have it on. I mean, as I'm driving down the road, I can just reach over and turn it off. And my eyes will be fine. And if I need to see anything, I'll turn it back on. And the other thing that I kept on talking about on the truck and the RV was the positioning of the camera and how maybe the brake light, or in the case of the RV, the marker light would affect the infrared lenses. So what I'm going to do now is I have no headlights on. I don't have any of my tail lights on, nothing like that. Let me go ahead and turn on my parking lights. And you can see those, of course, in the reflection of the garage. Let me get the camera a little bit closer there. And now I'm going to touch
the brake, which will, of course, illuminate my two side brake lights, my left and right brake lights, but also I have that third LED brake light that's right underneath the camera. So let's see if it affects the picture at all. Well, there was a change, but there is a change. There's a change to the night vision. It's not bad, though. It's not a bad change. It's just there was a change. I don't know if you guys could tell, but there was something that was going on there. It's like there's a flash. When I first hit the brakes, there's a flash to the light. But other than that, it doesn't affect the picture at all. That's all I was concerned with. I mean, other than the flare-up of the picture itself, that's not bad. All right, so now we're in my son's van, so let's go ahead and check out the view that he's got going on with his van. Now, in his case, the cabled system, again, we can make better adjustments to the screen's brightness, but overall, it's pretty much the same as mine. I still just wanted to give you an idea of what it looked like as far as the quality of the night vision. Right now, I have it in to where it's thinking that it's daylight out because of all these lights in here. Especially back here, and we're going to go ahead and turn those off and then focus in on the monitor. His is set up to where it's powered on with the vehicle, just like mine. Look how fast that is. That is so fast. That's incredibly fast. I'm amazed. I'm really amazed at that. Now, like I said, in his case, you know, you can go through the menu, and these are the dim settings. See how it says dim in front of the word? So it's not brightness, it's just dim. Now, in this case, I must have got too close, or I'm not sure what happened, but somehow the brightness went away. So the dim brightness. Let me see if I can get it back. There we go. And it has something to do with my hands. So what we can do is we can lower this down quite a bit more. I can't do this on mine. That's the one thing that I think that this one has over mine. I like how it dims it for him. Still, though, I mean, you gotta realize this is pretty bright. This lights, you know, this lightens up. Again, the reason it did that is because my hand made that sensor kick on. See, it just dimmed. But even, you know, as dim as that brightness goes like that, it's still lightening up. You know, here, let me show you. I'm sure you can still see this. You could probably see my face, and it's lit up. I mean, it's lit up inside this van. So again, it's one of those things that the best thing that you could do is just do this, turn this on when you need to back up. So the other thing you can do is the scale adjust, and you can make it to where it comes on, and you just push the OK button. See, you can see a scale then. And what I'm talking about is the parking scale. It's 3 different colors. Red's, you know, warning you're real close. Yellow, and you know, it's caution, and then green's okay. And I've adjusted this to where it's right up against his bumper, basically, or real close to his bumper. I can't do that with mine. Not only that, but since the camera's mounted off to one side on his door, I can move this box over to help center it behind the vehicle. I can't do that on mine. So that's why you see a little bit closer on this side of the screen than on this side of the screen, because the camera's off-centered. But it does a really good job. Overall, these systems are quality. They are not bad at all for what's out there and what's being charged by other companies. These are some real steals. So let me give you my final thoughts on these things.
Well, I hope that helped you out. Again, links are down below. If you have any questions, go ahead and hit me in the comments. I'll see if I can answer them. The wireless camera only comes with one camera. I did purchase a separate one. Of course, that part number will also be down below. And this kit here, I don't know, again, if I have a link for it quite yet, but look for it down in the description. Again, I think you'll be happy. I mean, your alternatives is, you know, usually in this kind of category is that Furrion. And it is an industry leader, but it also leads the industry in how much it costs too. So I think for the price, these are pretty decent. Hope this helped out. Thanks for watching. Sorry the video went on so long, but I wanted to be thorough. Appreciate it. Bye.